Okay, I'll just have a couple of minutes at the front end just to let everybody join. Okay, guys, we'll get going in about another 30 seconds. Right, so quick introductions. I'm Richard Milestone. I'm one of the company directors at Global Search Marketing. I'm going to be making way shortly for our presenter today, who's Dan Swan. And Dan's actually one of our PPC account managers. I think, Dan, you look after typically about 10 to 20 clients on a sort of a monthly basis, that sort of ilk. So your experience, you're constantly seeing all sorts of different clients, different strategies. So Dan's a highly experienced PPC manager. So today's webinar is titled PPC Conversion Tracking for Lead Generation. And I'm going to pass over to you, Dan, in a moment, just to let everybody know that we are obviously all in home working, as you can probably tell by our backgrounds. The internet is always up and down. If we have any problems, apologies for that. We will do our best to resolve it. You'll be able to watch this webinar on YouTube, and if you struggle with any of that, just come through to our website, and I think it's up in the resource section. I think there's a section under webinar. You should be able to go and get access to it there as well. And obviously, if you want to talk to us at any point, please give us a shout. There'll be contact details on the back end of this slide deck, and obviously our website as well. So always give us a shout if you've got any questions. We're always happy to talk to you. So Dan, if it's okay, I'm going to pass across to you now. I may or may not just sit here and enjoy the presentation. I might jump in and ask a few questions. So over to you, if I may.
No problem. Thanks for that, Rich. So, yeah, as Rich was saying, I'm one of the account managers at Global Search Marketing, covering the PPC side of the team. So, yeah, as Rich mentioned, it's a case of looking after anywhere between 10 to 20 clients. Day-to-day account management, optimization, basically getting stuck into all of our PPC channels and trying to get the best performance for our clients. So, I think as topics go, for me personally, and obviously across the global search marketing team, conversions and conversion tracking is something that is sometimes overlooked by a lot of clients in terms of how actually important it is to one, have implemented within an account, and two, to make sure it's accurate and right, to make sure that any results that we're striving for are based on some accurate data and accurate actions. So just in terms of, boiling it down to the basics for anyone who's unsure, what is conversion tracking, in the context of PPC and lead generation? So in in terms of a definition, Google's probably a good standard to go by. So a specific customer action that you've defined as valuable to your business. So just with regards to that context, anybody who wants to start PPC advertising, they obviously can start showing ads through various channels. The examples that we're going to be giving within this webinar are mostly Google ads, but they want some kind of end result for that. They want to see that their money is being spent in the correct way, and you're getting the right kind of results for that. So a conversion action is something that a client or a PPC performance expert would define as valuable, and this can be anything on your website or your app that you want users that come through your ads to perform once they reach that location. So this can be anything, or we'll go into some examples in a minute, but this can be anything that you as a client would deem valuable. So in terms of, what's the point in having these conversions? As I mentioned, it really is what you would deem as success. So if you're running your PPC ads and then you want someone to go through to your website to perform, email link clicks, phone call link clicks, contact form submissions, if this is what you deem as success, then that can be set up as a conversion. From the other side, it may be a case of your objectives may be something like driving awareness of your brand, in which case, again, you can set up conversions for that, but it just really depends on what you deem as success. Now, that's kind of conversions themselves. Conversion tracking is kind of the process of actually setting up the conversions, and so that they speak to the PPC platforms and accurately track when these conversion actions are performed, and how that feeds into all the data you have within your PPC platforms. So just in terms of an account and an example, we've got some screenshots from one of our Google Ads accounts. So you can see on the left that there's a list of conversions or conversion actions that are set up. So completed conversions, callback conversions, call from ads, call from websites, live chat. So in the example of lead generation, these are all actions that the client in question has deemed as a lead being generated, and these are the kind of actions that we want to drive and optimize towards when looking after a Google Ads account. So just as another example, the image on the right is just a screenshot from the Google Ads interface dashboard, and obviously those conversions are being pulled into the different rows, which are different campaigns, and that basically determines which campaigns have driven a volume of conversions, and so you can see essentially which ones are driving more and which ones are driving less.
Dan, can I just jump in and ask a question then? So just looking there, you've got we've got about 123 conversions there on that particular campaign. So this is where you can drill down and actually start to look at all those different types of conversions you mentioned earlier. Presumably we can obviously pull these out and break them down and look into a sort of a granular level.
Yeah, you can do that. So within the image on the right, where you can see the conversions column that's highlighted by the box, there's the row of icons above that. You can see the search icon on the left. Actually, the icon next to that, which is segment, within your Google Ads account, you can actually click on that and segment by conversion actions. So the conversion actions that are on the image on the left, and that will actually expand each row out. So each column out, and break down those conversion numbers by action that was. So you can get more of a in-depth kind of granular look at which conversions were driven within that conversions.
And this is all business intelligence, isn't it, here coming through? I mean, it's not, obviously you can look at this even from a PPC point of view, but obviously you can take a big step back and, actually looking at how your audience is engaging with you as well. There's all sorts of information from a business intelligence point of view that comes out of all of this. So no, that's excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's, you can see that some users there may be a preference to a certain conversion action through one campaign, one keyword, one ad group, kind of level you want to see. And that kind of gives you, as you say, an insight into the user behavior and their kind of preference when it comes to conversion actions.
I think a good example of that.
Just to
Oh, sorry, Dan, if I can just jump in and just say a good example, I think, of that is actually our website. I'm one of those types of people that likes to pick up a telephone and ring and speak to somebody, and I've always assumed that that's the norm. People pick up the phone and ring. And actually, what we've seen over the years is a lot of people actually avoid picking up the phone, and their preference is to do anything other than speak. They want to just drop a contact form or an email or a chat. This is the type of information that can be quite surprising when you actually start to look at actually how people interact and how, and sometimes it's also how you've set up the front end. Depending on how you've set the front end up is how people will engage. So it is an interesting, as I say, in terms of that data collection, that intelligence, it's a very interesting area.
Yeah, definitely. So, obviously it's a good example for using our own website. So in terms of examples, what you may set up or determine as your own kind of conversion actions, as you rightly said, it depends on the layout of the website, what kind of call to actions you want in the navigation bars, at certain levels of your kind of, the layout of your whole site or your app. So within the example of our own global search marketing website, obviously we've got the phone number at the top, so that can be set up as a conversion action. You can go through and set up what's called a calls from website or phone number link click. And essentially what that will do is any user that comes through an ad on Google Ads, for example, and interacts with that clickable link can be then fed back to Google Ads to say, okay, someone who came through the ads has clicked on one of the phone numbers. It goes into obviously more depth than that. You can have call reporting, which shows all your different durations of the calls, area codes, everything like that, to again give that kind of insight into your audience and your users, where they're coming from, what kind of engagement they have for phone calls. The bottom right, as you can see, is the live chat. So for lead generation companies now, this is obviously a really, really popular tool that people are using just to capture audiences in just a more, snappy, quick fire way, as opposed to, emailing, or as you said earlier, Rich, if people aren't inclined to really pick up the phone anymore, then this is a tool that they could come through. So you can set up any kind of interaction with the live chat software as a conversion action. So a user initiating the chat, obviously you guys would have seen from a lot of websites that have that automated messaging pop up after a certain amount of time on the website. So any kind of engagement responses to that can be a separate one if that's something you wanted to do. So those are just a couple of examples from our homepage. And then on our contact page, you've got the email, for our global search marketing team. Any kind of interaction with that email can be set up. So again, just another form of a potential lead that's coming through. And obviously we want to capture as much data as we can with our own PPC account. So we get those conversion actions to fire back. And then there's the contact form, again, obviously for lead generation and lead generation clients. This is obviously one of the most popular kind of methods for capturing data and getting leads through to the appropriate team. So again, once that's filled out, that's submitted. A lot of people would send that through to a thank you page. Nowadays, as you will see a lot of just modals pop up saying thank you. So we're on the within the PPC team, we're able to track kind of engagement on that front, submission and successful submissions.
I think we do that actually with ours, Dan. I think we have the majority of ours actually have a thank you page. Some of our contact forms do just have a pop up. I think we normally use the actual separate page because we've got additional information. We want to sort of I think we've got contact details on for our sales director and various other bits of information. But as you say, you can do either or, can't you now? So which is excellent.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously that's kind of a simplified breakdown of what conversion actions are. You'd be surprised at the amount of clients and PPC advertisers that actually do have Google Ads accounts and then don't have conversion tracking set up. So if you imagine that kind of ties back to an approach of more traditional media and traditional advertising where there's nothing for you to really track. It's just a case of apart from things like econometric models where you can try and figure out how many conversions or sales or leads or whatever it is those came to. Within this, it's so accessible just to create those conversion actions, so you can see almost in real time what the performance is of your campaigns. So, with those being just what conversions are, I guess it's we need to kind of dive into how important that data is, especially for a PPC advertiser. So conversion actions, once they're kind of set up and the tracking is working correctly, you've tested it, and your conversion actions are firing in the right way, in the right manner. This will allow for kind of several next steps within your PPC management. So first off, unlock conversion reporting metrics. So what this essentially means, it kind of ties back to the screenshot that I showed you at the start of the account, where you've got your conversions column. Now, obviously, when you set up successful conversion tracking, then those conversion columns will start to populate with numbers of the amount of conversion actions that have been fired. What that also does then is ties into several other metrics that Google Ads have. These include like cost over conversion. So that is your average cost per conversion. So you know that if for a lead generation business, how much you're paying for each conversion, and then obviously that allows you to see your own internal cost versus your advertising costs and how much each lead is going to cost you. Conversion rate, so obviously the amount of clicks through to the website and the proportion of those people who actually go on to perform one of those conversion actions. Your conversion rate is a good indication of potentially you need to make some amendments to your landing pages, to your website, as you said earlier, Rich, to where your call to actions are. Are they in quite a prominent place on the website where it will drive users to perform those actions? And again, if it also is a question of relevancy, if you're sending a lot of clicks through to a client's website, and there's a really low conversion rate, but you're under the impression that the landing page and the website is optimized to its potential, then it's a question of, okay, so the search terms, the keywords we're targeting, are they as relevant to the product as they potentially could be? So it allows for a lot more analysis. And that kind of feeds into budgeting and forecasting then, because for a lead generation client, if you've got a campaign with a really low CPA, cost per acquisition, cost per lead, and you've got another campaign that's got quite a high cost per acquisition, and you've got a certain CPA that you want to hit, then your options are to reallocate budget into the campaign that is performing well, try and drive more conversions and more leads at that lower cost per acquisition, and potentially pulling back on campaigns that might have a higher one, a lower conversion rate, less relevancy, as we kind of mentioned earlier. So it really ties into how essential conversion data is, because all of these decisions you make for optimizing a Google Ads account will be based on the kind of end performance. How many leads do we get for this campaign, this budget, and it will help you make decisions down the line. The kind of third point to touch on, conversion-based smart bidding strategies. So that's the next level of your budgeting, forecasting, and your conversion metrics. So what that means is Google Ads taking more of a direction towards automation, machine learning, and trying to give clients and PPC advertisers the maximum kind of return, whether that's lead generation or for e-commerce, kind of return for their advertising spend. And they feel the best way to do this is to utilize all of Google's data they have, the kind of signals that different users have to suggest that they are the most likely to go through to your website or a client's website and actually perform the conversion actions. So just in terms of what these smart bidding strategies are, we've got maximize conversions. So once your conversion actions are in place, they're firing correctly, the data starts to be pulled into your Google Ads account. Then one of your options is maximize conversions, where Google will try and get you the most conversions for your particular budget, and it will spend that budget in order to do so. So as you can see from the column, it will use historical account conversion data. So any conversions you've had that have come through will be used by Google alongside all these multiple different signals in their algorithm to figure out which people to bid higher on, because it would start doing the bids at an auction level. So rather than just you applying a certain bid to a keyword, and that's the bid that will be applied throughout every auction until you say otherwise, it will actually amend the bid to what it thinks is the best kind of bid for each.
Dan, can I just say, is this one of these points where data is fantastic to have, but it's only as good as the information that it's got to sort of apply. So this is where our communications with clients is so important, to hear all of those metrics that aren't coming through the system that we can sort of apply ourselves as well. So it was just a case of listening there and sort of saying, well, this is, yes, it's all great, but there's all sorts of other metrics that go into the equation. But we obviously, with our relationships with the clients, when we're talking, we can also then apply ourselves into the mix, which is again that bit of that human element that can go in as well. Yeah,
definitely. It's a case of, if a client isn't too familiar with PPC advertising, Google Ads interface, everything like that, it may be the kind of impression you have is that you just get the clicks to the website, as many clicks as possible for the budget. Let's just drive traffic, and it's really gone much further beyond that now. And in order for us to communicate that, obviously we work closely with Google to understand how their bidding strategies work and what data they need from the client side in order to maximize these kind of bidding strategies. So it's really taken kind of the next step from there. And obviously our job as account managers is to try and relay that message, make it digestible for clients, and help them understand how these bidding strategies are trying to drive the most conversions, the cheapest conversions, and essentially trying to maximize their return on their ad spend. So maximize conversions is kind of like the overarching step to driving as many conversions as possible. It will do that. It will spend essentially what kind of campaign budget you set, and as I said earlier, we'll amend the bids to try and drive those conversions. Target CPA, the next one, target cost per action or acquisition, is a bidding strategy that you probably implement after maximize conversions, and you have substantial data from the maximize conversions bidding strategy, because what this allows you to do is all of the things within the column of maximize conversions, but essentially set a target of how much you want to spend for a conversion. So without all the data, the conversion data within the account that maximize conversions can help you achieve, then target CPA will struggle to know what bids to make, what kind of people to target, in order to get you that right cost per action. So again, in the example that I gave earlier, if a lead generation client has with their own internal data and their internal costs, a certain cost per action, cost per conversion that they want to set, then obviously with enough conversion data, we can actually set that target, and Google will use all the algorithms and the signals to attempt to achieve as many conversions as possible at or below that target. So that's kind of, again, the next step up. And obviously, without conversion actions that have been implemented, and again, I reiterate, conversion tracking that is accurate and working properly, then you can utilize these bidding strategies. This is a webinar about lead generation, but there's a lot of revenue-based options as well. Maximize conversion value, so that goes into putting your revenue, your sales amount into the conversion action information, and then similar to target CPA, you can try and allow for hitting a certain return based on that revenue value. So it's not just a case of these smart bidding strategies are for lead generation clients, they're also for obviously e-commerce businesses as well.
So Dan, would it be, obviously this is a good example of if you were to take a budget, let's just pick a figure of £10,000, depending on how you allocate that budget and the strategies that you're applying, how the return can be so significantly different depending on the strategy that your account managers are applying and working with the client to apply. It's that important, really, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's it's as we mentioned earlier, it's how that's communicated to the clients, and again, getting information, as much information as we can from their side to say, here's our target CPA, here's how much we want to spend per conversion for the reason that we have this cost, and we potentially make this much on a successful lead. So it's it really is a case of an ad spend budget can go a long way with these smart bidding strategies, but without conversion tracking, they can't happen, and it's almost like shooting in the.
And I think Dan, it's fair to say we've had clients over the years that have just come along to us with a budget and have just been a little bit blinded to this and haven't realised, and just said, just get me as many conversions as you possibly can, without really understanding how that impacts on which some product groups have got higher margins, and all of these factors that all come into getting that efficiency and the gains. Over a period of time, they develop that understanding, and you can go right the way down, as you say, to the revenue-based options. You can really start to get the max out of your budget as possible.
Yeah, definitely. And that's how the relationship kind of grows as well, isn't it? Because you go back and forth with clients and help them understand, and then they help you understand, their own internal targets. So that's how that relationship kind of grows, and that's how accounts grow, and obviously return for clients grows. So. Okay, so obviously that's the principles of conversion actions and why they are essential within a PPC account, within Google Ads or any kind of platform. As I mentioned earlier, you can really set up anything you like on your website or app as a conversion action. It just has to be something valuable to yourself. And within the context of lead generation, obviously those leads, you want customers to be reaching out to everybody. And once that tracking's in place, then you can use all the different metrics, all the bidding strategies to try and send through as many conversions of those leads as possible, and then go forward and increase the relevancy and try and get more qualified leads as the months go on. But that's the kind of principal side. Now, in terms of actually setting up conversion tracking, that's something that the majority of our clients trust us to handle at GSM, because there's a few kind of options on how to do it. It does get a little bit complicated, and it's something that in-house you may not want to be spending the time on learning how to do, or how to do properly. So you go through into the account. So from my first screenshot at the start of the webinar, where you could see the list of conversion actions within a Google Ads account, what you'd be doing is you're going through, you're clicking on the blue plus icon, and you're essentially creating a new conversion action. That can be your website, that can be a phone call action, that can be on your app, and that can be an import. So in the example of this one, if you're going through and selecting a website conversion action, so again, with the GSM website, if we were trying to track that phone call link, then we'd go through, we could create a new conversion action Select the category. So this is something that just basically helps Google Ads segment all the different kind of conversion actions. You've got things like submission, contacts, sign up. There's a whole list of different ones that would just help Google categorize internally what that action is. You allocate a conversion name. So this may not seem too important for now, but what that can help with down the line is reporting. So if you're using any kind of external reporting software, something like Google Data Studio, then you can pull in certain data by the conversion name. So again, back to the screenshot from before, live chats, phone call, phone number link click, email link click, calls from websites. Naming all these in a certain way and having a good name convention will help down the line keep things much more with reporting and a lot cleaner. Conversion value. So I know this is a webinar about lead generation. So at this stage, a conversion value would be 0. You have no value. But when you're going forward for a e-commerce business, you may be putting in dynamic variables for conversion value, from a thank you page. Something you can potentially do with the lead generation clients is assign a arbitrary value to a lead. So with their own internal kind of numbers, accounting, reporting, they may say, okay, well, each contact form for us is at the value of £20. And then you can assign that value to the conversion. That will start pulling in revenue value, even though it's a sign up. A kind of combination between the two, but for the most part, clients just want to generate leads and they just want to convert those leads internally without assigning that arbitrary value. But it depends on obviously how you work internally. And then the final stage to setting up a conversion is selecting the attribution model, which is something we'll go into a little bit later on in more detail. But it's basically how Google will credit campaigns, ad groups, keywords, depending on where they sit, where that click sits within the user journey to performing conversion action. So we'll touch on that a little bit later on. So once you've created this action, you've got a few options for implementation then. So install a tag yourself. So if you're the webmaster of your company, you can go through, follow the instructions and actually implement the conversion code into its appropriate place on the website. Obviously, that is totally dependent on the platform you're on, whether that's for lead generation, WordPress, Wix, whatever that might be for e-commerce, Shopify, Magento. If you've got the capabilities in-house, then obviously you can implement this yourself. Email the tag to a developer. So that's a case of, again, internally, if you've got a developer that you work close with, an in-house one, another agency, then you can obviously send that through to them, and that'll have all the instructions in terms of implementation and making sure that tag is firing accurately. What we tend to do within our agency is use Google Tag Manager. So if a client has an account already, then obviously we'll gain access to that and then add the tag through Google Tag Manager. If they don't have one, we can obviously set them up a Google Tag Manager account and implement the code through that. So in the example of Tag Manager, it'd be a case of creating the conversion action, taking the code that Google supplies, which is assigned to that conversion action, creating a tag, hence Google Tag Manager, creating a tag in Tag Manager, which is assigned to that conversion, has that ID, and then you would create a trigger in order to fire that tag. So in the example of the phone number link click on the GSM website, the tag would be phone number link click, and the trigger would be anytime that a user goes through and actually clicks on the tail link, which is the navigation bar. So anytime someone clicks on that, we know there's been an interaction, and based on that trigger, when that happens and somebody's come through an ad, that will fire, send the message back to Google Ads, and then obviously that's when you start pulling in your figures into your conversion column, and obviously all cascades from there then into your different metrics and your different bidding strategies. So trying not to get too technical in terms of the implementation, but that's essentially how you go through and your options for.
Dan, would it be, I mean, it obviously, as you mentioned, it depends how your organization is set up, if you've got in-house teams or you're outsourcing it. But one of the things we've found, I think, with Tag Manager is for companies that use a third-party web developer, or use multiple different third-party web developers, it's much easier to allow your agency to manage the tags, and it gives it's much faster. So if you're managing the account today and you've spotted something, an opportunity, you've had a conversation with a client, you can pretty much get it done and in across the weekend, and you're already gathering that data, and it's fast. I know myself many years ago, you could be waiting an awful long time to get the most simple tasks done from your web developers, mainly because it can be quite a low priority task to the developer. So having Tag Manager, I think, gives your agency, if you're using an agency or if you're doing it yourself, and you know how to set it up. And obviously, as you say, I mean, contact us if you've got any queries on that. It is a much easier system, and I also know that I know it can be debatable, depends how it's all set up, but it can be a little bit faster in terms of web speed on your website and stuff. Obviously, it's a little bit more user friendly from that side as well, and you haven't got tags here, there, and everywhere. And the final one is the classic, where you come along to a website and you find out there's all these blooming tags that have been from yesteryear, and all of these tags are loading up and everything's going on. And had they've all been in Tag Manager, it'd be nice and clean, you'd have seen it all, and you can manage it. So I think there's a whole host of other benefits to using Tag Manager as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's you can obviously go through on Tag Manager from our side of it as an account manager side and actually test the conversions, then and there in debug mode to find that are those conversions firing correctly. And as you rightly said, it's just you cut out all of the comms between a developer, or sometimes going through a client through to the developer and back. So yeah, and again, it's
I'm sure Dan, we've even had examples where developers have put codes in the most peculiar places and loading order, and we found that for whatever reason the conversion tracking actually hasn't triggered due to the way that the developers have set it up. So there's, again, I think it is always better to try and get Tag Manager installed and functioning.
Yeah, definitely, and it's not just for Google Ads either. We implement Facebook tracking pixels, event tracking pixels, and Google Analytics go through Tag Manager. Microsoft ads, Bing ads can be set up for their conversion tracking within Tag Manager. Any kind of third-party integration can go through Tag Manager, so that's something we can handle as well, and it's not separate jobs per channel. We can just kind of centralize that and put it through the Tag Manager. And as you said, Rich, it's the case of that also helps with regards to website speed, because it's all going through a separate container. And the only code you actually have to implement on the website at the time is the Tag Manager one. So that's definitely a benefit to clients, especially with regards to how important conversion tracking is, and as you say, pulling in that data as soon as you can to try and make right decisions whilst we're putting ad spend through PPC platforms. Okay, so conversion action settings. This is kind of like the last section of it now. So when setting up your conversion actions is kind of like the step-by-step that I was talking about earlier. There are additional settings, obviously attribution models being one of them, that you can kind of play with and tweak to get the most transparency and the most accurate data out of your conversion actions and how that data is pulled into Google Ads. So one of these is the count option. So you have a choice to either pull through every or one in terms of the count. So what this means is, for something like lead generation, if you were to choose one rather than every, it means that a user could come through one of your Google Ads, whether that be search, display, video, wherever, and they could go through, they could chat in your live chat, and integrate with the person. And then they could, go through and potentially download a file about one of your products, or if you had that set up as a conversion action as well, and then they could go through and interact with another element that you've set as a conversion action. Now, as much as those are 3 separate conversion actions, it's one user coming through to actually perform all 3 of those. Now, in the context of that being a lead, you would say arguably that is still just one lead. That's one user performing all these different things. It's one person you're going to try and contact with your sales team or whoever. So we could choose one within that settings. Now, for e-commerce, you would choose every, just because if somebody went through and purchased something from your site, and obviously the revenue value is assigned and pulled into Google Ads, and then they came back and purchased something else, you don't want to set one as the count, because obviously you still want to pull in that separate revenue value, even if someone split up their shopping experience into two separate stages. So, and obviously you can see from the other side, if you select every for leads, then your conversion volume is going to be inflated in terms of the actual leads that they came.
So, Dan, if you take our website, for example, I'm guessing an example there would be somebody's come onto our chat and they've engaged, but nobody's responded, which is one of my pet hates. But nobody's responded. They've then gone to the email and the form, and they've filled in a form, and there's still no response, and they hit the telephone number, and they've done. So that's effectively 3 conversions. And what you're saying there is what you don't want is that flagging in the system as 3 leads here. I mean, we want to be able to see it, because I'll be asking a couple of questions as to how that's happened, but you can see that on your segmentation, sorry, as you described earlier. So I think that's a nice little example using our website as how easy it can be to get the wrong data coming out if you get this set up incorrectly.
Yeah, and it's again a case of, for the settings for one conversion action, if you had one selected, someone could go through and click a file download for one product spec, click a file download for another product spec. It's the same conversion action, but you still want to count that as one, because you don't want to have 30 file downloads while someone downloads all your spec sheets for a certain product, and obviously then have 30 conversions coming through, because that is, it's not an accurate representation of that as a lead. Even if they filled in their details to get those downloads multiple times, it's still one person. So that's one setting. Another setting is including conversions. So obviously the conversion column that you can see on the right, that's just the normal conversions column, is the one that we highlighted earlier. Something you can choose to do is create a conversion action and then not have that call into the conversions column itself. Now, you might be thinking, after everything we've gone through, what is the point in that? Well, surely that's the whole point of this webinar, to say you want to pull that conversion data in, have as much data as possible, so you can start to make decisions, budgets, forecasts, campaign budgets, like how you want to use that data. Now, you can do that, but in the sense that you want to have a conversion action for engagement, for example. You want to see how many users come through and stay on the website for a certain amount of time, then, or scroll to a certain point, or click onto a certain page. You can set a conversion action for that, but it's not necessarily a valuable action. It's not something that is going to provide a lead for you or something like that. It'll be valuable in the sense that it can show from the traffic you're sending how many people are sticking around for a certain amount of time, visiting a certain amount of pages, visiting this one particular page. But it's not something you want to make decisions on with the smart bidding strategies, with the different conversions that are being pulled through. So you can actually select no, but then pull all that information through in the all conversions column. So if you exclude a certain conversion action from the conversions column, then that will still be pulled into that all conversions. And you can see from the screenshot, there's a slight discrepancy between those two bits of data, the conversions and the all conversion action. And and that basically means separate conversion actions are not being pulled through. So that again helps you kind of determine a cost per all conversions. So CPA, if you were taking all of those into account, but then obviously you've got your conversions and your cost over conversion for just the conversion actions you actually want to pull into Google Ads to make those decisions on. So there's that. And then the final kind of setting is attribution models. Now, this is obviously something we touched on before, and we might be going into potentially too much detail for anyone who is only just learning what conversion actions are, what conversion tracking is. But for anyone who's kind of like a little bit more advanced on that front, attribution models, as I said earlier, are how Google credits certain campaigns, ad groups, keywords, ads with a conversion, and what amount of credit will it give based on which attribution model you choose. So if you imagine you have one conversion, you go through, you hit the live chat, speak to you, Rich, and then that's one conversion. Now, you could choose one of these different attribution models so that conversion suddenly becomes 0.5. So it's a question we have from clients quite often, that they say, oh, why, we've had 131.7 conversions, but like, how can we have 0.7 of a conversion? And this is down to the attribution models and how those kind of, whichever one you select is going to credit your campaigns in a different way. So all of these have been pulled from Google Ads in terms of how they're actually broken down. Now, if you imagine last click gives all credit for the conversion to the last clicked ad and corresponding keywords. So if we're looking for PPC services, we click on our GSM ad, we go through, we hit the live chat, we speak to you, Rich, and that's conversion. So last click, whatever ad we clicked on, whatever keyword, that will be given one conversion. First click, obviously just the adverse of that. Whichever, if we went through and clicked on an ad and then clicked on another ad at another time, it's to be that first ad you clicked on that would be given the credit, it'd be given the one conversion, because you could argue that is the ad that provided the awareness of the company. The user went through, found the company, and therefore that should have the conversion allocated to that. Now you can see there's obviously after that different attribution models of how Google will credit that conversion. Things like position based gives 40% of credit to both the first and last ad interactions. So it's arguing that they are the most important. The first one, the first ad click where you create the awareness of the company, of the product, and then the last one is obviously the one that drove that conversion home. So 40, 40, 20 for that, if it's 20 in the middle. So again, like 0.2 of a conversion if it's an ad click for within that. If it's on a different campaign, a different keyword, then you get 0.2 of that conversion. Time decay, obviously, this is where if you believe that it gets more relevant towards the conversion, then obviously that's when the conversion will be given most credit towards the end of that user journey. And obviously, data driven is something that needs to have a certain volume of conversion data in order for Google to unlock this. But this is kind of our best one, and this is the one that you want to try to set your conversion actions towards, because that's obviously using all those signals and all the algorithms and everything like that Google use for their smart bidding strategies based, and then applying to which campaigns, ad groups, keywords deserve the different credit. So that's kind of just an overarching, brief breakdown of the different attribution models and how that would affect the conversion volume numbers that come through. So I'd say that's probably, that's an overarching breakdown of conversion actions within PPC channels, particularly Google Ads. It's, hopefully we've covered the basics and some parts a little bit more in depth for any of the guys that are watching. And obviously it kind of shows that from an account manager perspective, how how important conversion data is from our side, and obviously how we can relay that to clients and to any kind of other PPC users in terms of driving the best performance for them.
Okay. Well, thanks, Dan. I mean, as you say, I mean, really, this is the crux of making your budget work harder, really, isn't it? This is how you get one account manager getting a different return to a different account manager at a different agency, all down to getting the max out of your budget. And this is where your expertise shines through. So thank you very much. If there's any questions for Dan, his contact details are all there. You can get it by email or his LinkedIn. Please do ask away. So really appreciate that. So in terms of if you want to view this again, guys, you can do. It's on our YouTube channel. It's on our website. So by all means, obviously you can get access to it there whenever you need. So I think at that point we'll say thank you very much, and we'll stop the webinar there. So thanks again, Dan. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, no worries at all. Right. Cool. Thanks, Rich.
No problem.